Welcome, everybody. As always, please feel free to ask questions along the way if you're watching live. If you think you might like to come and join me on the show yourself, then please do get in contact. My details on the channel's About page. Next week, we're talking with Thea Flowers about various electronics projects, but today's guest is Jana Hemsing. Hello, Jana.
Hey,
How are you doing?
doing good. How are you?
Good stuff. Yes, fine, thank you. Could you just introduce yourself quickly, just who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Jana. I'm a hardware engineer and embedded engineer from Germany, and I do various open source projects of different sizes and scales, as well as hardware design and engineering as a professional job.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. So, as always, I like to start with people's backgrounds, how they got to where they are today. Can you just start off with your childhood and talk to us about where you were, what you did back then?
Yeah, sure. So in my childhood, I did nothing with technology, I'm afraid. I was actually into sports, and I was an athlete in competitive athletics as well as endurance running, badminton, and swimming.
Okay.
I did that until I was maybe 15, 16, and then switched to a, again, much different profession of doing photography.
Okay.
Um, at one point to a degree where one of my photographs was presented in an expedition.
That's amazing.
What, and that was super nice.
Yeah, well done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you talk to us about what kind of photography you did and your style, etc.?
Yeah, so I think what I enjoyed the most was both street photography and lost places.
Mm-hmm.
I love to explore stuff, like just grab a camera, or don't even grab a camera and start walking into a direction, like
Okay.
in a city, outdoors, whatever. And I just did that with my camera. I grabbed it and I walked through the city for hours, through different cities,
Yeah.
exploring stuff, finding nice motifs and taking a photo. And a bit later, I got into lost place photography. Found an abandoned train yard quite close to where I lived, and I went there quite often, and it's amazing.
Lots of old sort of big, heavy machinery and rundown buildings and stuff. That kind of thing.
Rundown buildings, and especially like plenty train tracks to route trains on this side. Super cool to just follow them just to find another ruined building or rundown building.
Yeah, nice. Very cool.
Yeah, I especially enjoyed like exploring old plans, and there was an interest for technical stuff. So especially with old plans, you could see all the machinery that they couldn't remove and left in place.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
At some point, we found an old laboratory for chemistry, which was super wild. And
what kind of thing did they
scary.
leave behind there? Yeah.
Nothing too fancy, sadly. The laboratory was quite empty, just some fume hoods and the work tables with like the stone where you could work on. In the factory next door, they left some huge drying machines for starch.
Okay.
So it was a starch factory. Was quite interesting.
Yeah, awesome, very cool. And so, what did you do next? Where did you move on to?
Yeah, after finishing school, I became a medical engineer. I started training for that. That's also where I got more into electronics, all the technical stuff.
Okay, can you just describe for us what you mean by medical engineer? What was your role, your responsibilities, etc.?
Yeah, so a medical engineer is a person who runs all the electronics or the medical devices in a hospital. Everything that interfaces with patients and nurses and doctors. That's what we maintain, run, fix, check, buy, discard, whatever.
That must be quite a daunting job, I imagine. If you've got, I'm presuming things like infusion pumps for syringes and
Everything from an infusion pump or syringe pump, or even from a blood pressure monitor
mhm.
to an MRI is what you have to deal with, and
Amazing.
what you really have to deal with. Um, at some point, I also had to repair an MRI, which is just a super weird machine to work on.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Um, so
And
yeah,
so, when you're dealing with that kind of equipment, there's a lot of responsibility. You potentially you've got people's lives at risk.
yeah,
Can you just talk about the stress and the training and things that go behind that?
yeah,
How did you
totally.
find it?
So this whole training also begins with like checking if you can actually do it, like if you can work under stress, if you can work with people who are presumably at their worst points of their lives,
Mhm.
if you can work with seeing blood, open wounds, whatever you can see in a surgery room.
So just to get this straight, you could have been called in the middle of a surgery to fix a
I
piece of
did.
equipment?
I
Wow.
was very often.
Okay.
That's also one of the most stressful parts of this job. You always have a phone with you, and you will get at least one to multiple calls a week to the surgery room
Wow.
because the device failed, and there's someone currently on the table who's not really able to survive without this device. So
Yeah.
um, you have to leave everything behind, run there, and fix it, no matter what.
Mhm.
Um, it's quite stressful,
I would imagine. Yeah, well done for doing the job.
but it's also I enjoyed it.
Yeah? Quite
Yeah,
rewarding to work and succeed under that kind of pressure?
yeah. There's something called in. I'm not sure if there's if you heard of the term type 2 fun.
I don't think I have. Can you expand on that?
Type 2 fun is the kind of fun where you don't enjoy the task, but afterwards it's amazing.
Okay, yes.
So basically, I was last weekend climbing in the Yosemite National Park, and I had quite some panic being on the wall like 100 meters above the ground, but afterwards it was amazing. I would probably
Mhm.
do it again. But
Yeah, looking back, but maybe not so
look,
much in the moment.
yeah, in the moment it was horrible, but it was amazing afterwards. That's type 2 fun. So
Okay,
I guess with the medical engineering, it was quite similar. In
yeah.
the moment, it can be super, super bad, devastating, and super complicated. But afterwards, when you manage to fix it, and you always do, it's amazing. Uh, you have to work. You are working with amazing and super capable people. Not
Mhm.
only medical engineers, but the surgeons and nurses and all these people who work at the hospital. And you all have the same goal to help the people who are there. So
Yeah,
that's nice. I enjoyed that a lot.
very good. And so, in terms of repair and fix, what does that involve? Is it potentially from a slight configuration error all the way through to swapping out a piece of equipment or taking it
Yeah,
apart potentially? We
yeah. So as you can imagine, most of it is configuration error or user error even.
Mhm.
Um, we also had to give plenty training to nurses and doctors to how to use the devices. That's part of
Mhm.
the job.
Okay.
So knowing how a device works in and out is basically your job,
Right.
and you have to transfer that knowledge to the people using the device in some manner where they can use it without being overwhelmed, but also without knowing too little.
Yeah.
And most of the errors are still actually user errors. And then you go there, you fix it, and you train them right away. Hey, this was the error. You can prevent this by doing this and whatsoever.
Okay.
Um, Quite often, it's also that the devices themselves report errors. This is especially true for medical devices, which have double and triple fail safes, which is
Mhm.
super necessary. But that also means that the devices report errors quite fast, and you just have to fetch it. And if it's a known error, you usually know what to do. Like the
Okay.
manufacturer tells you, what you can do. Then you have to swap parts or recalibrate something, or just swap the whole device. Discard culture is a thing. It's
so
well,
it sounds like you actually perform the repairs in the hospital, which is nice to hear, rather than having to send it all the way back to the manufacturer for them to do whatever with, because expensive piece of equipment, life critical piece of equipment, you can't necessarily do without, I would imagine.
Yeah, no, you can't. So part of the job is also to build a replacement, like get one, have a spare one on hand, and if not, call people to get spare ones. Yeah, you can't survive without certain devices. But most repairs were done in the hospital, in the workshop the workshops that we maintained in all the hospitals.
Yeah.
And it's often just take the device, repair it right away, test it, check it, bring it back because it's needed. There's often no time for slack when it comes to repairs.
Yeah, fascinating. So so you did that for I think carry on. Yeah.
A total of 5 years.
5 years, okay. And that was enjoyable, but you found that maybe that wasn't quite for you during that time, or what happened?
So at some point, even with all the devices that are out there, which are so many, it became repetitive. I enjoyed it a lot while it lasted, especially working with all the physics and the high energy stuff that you also encounter. You encounter X-rays and super strong magnetism and all of that, super high voltages, super high currents, and it's super fun. But at some point it became repetitive. And as I said earlier, it's repair and maintenance, maintenance mostly. And I started enjoying designing hardware.
Okay.
That's what I mostly learned in the 5 years I've been there. I joined a hackerspace 1 year after I started it, so I became part of the whole hacker community, and I did my own projects. I designed my own hardware, so that became my interest.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I guess kind of working with the electronics that someone else had designed, and being part of the hackerspace, doing your own designs of electronics, you kind of wanted more involvement in making the equipment rather than just repairing it. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
okay.
my interest shifted from working with the people and the hardware in the hospital setting to designing actual hardware and
Very cool.
doing stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Talk to us more about that then. How did that go, and where did you take that, or where did that take you?
Yeah. After about 5 years, which included 3.5 years of training to become a medical engineer, which is still full work, I switched the company and I joined a software company, a German one, and I joined their showcase department. My official title there was maker, which is super silly, but nice.
Yeah.
So my job there was to design and realize showcases together with the company management. So basically, the people who realize the vision of the company. So who create the products and the direction of the company, and they worked out ideas of how to show the software in real life, how to showcase it. And that's where I stepped in. We had a team of 3 people in our sub department, which were 3 makers. One of them was very much into catch, like MCatch. One of them was much more into design, writing, concepts, and I was very much into embedded and hardware engineering. So whenever the management wanted to show something off in a certain way, so the company designed software to So I designed like web software to build websites and to automate jobs, tasks like restaurants, hotels,
Okay.
parking lots, whatever you can automate.
Hmm.
And whenever they found a problem or created one which should be solved, we designed hardware and devices for it to solve it, especially with some focus on uh, beauty. So
Beauty was that,
we
as in good
yeah,
looking? Yeah.
good
Okay.
looking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we certainly only designed prototypes, but quite good looking ones.
Okay. Can you give us an example of the sort of thing you produced?
Yeah. So the hotel. At one
Okay.
point, the or one big customer of this whole concept was the hotel industry. So
Okay.
but their software was quite good in managing rooms and sales and everything that you need for a hotel to run.
Hmm.
So they bought an old hotel and
Wow.
one old building which
Okay.
formerly was a hotel, which fitted, renovated it and ran it without any staff member. Everything was done in software.
Okay.
Um,
That's amazing.
and
That feels a bit wonky.
honestly, it felt wonky to me too.
Okay.
However, my job was to create some light installations for
Hmm.
the hotel. So there was a concept of some colorful, smart illumination along the floors and hallways, and I designed a system with 12,500 addressable LEDs with a total length of 250 meters, which were
Okay.
then installed into the floors, into some super night light rails, into the ceilings. Looked quite good.
Yeah.
Um, and I designed the whole electrical, like the power supply system for that, because if you want to run a public or semi-public place like a hotel, there's
Hmm.
some regulatories when it comes to fire safety and what happens, like if the hotel, like if everyone needs to get out, there
Hmm.
need to be some fail safes.
As in lighting, but also not making the fire worse from an electronics
Yeah,
point of view. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So I designed the whole power supply system and the data supply system, because one of the ideas was that you check into the hotel with your smartphone, you
Right.
click on open door, the hotel door opens, and the smart illumination shows the way to your room. And in the end, that worked.
Amazing. Yeah.
Um, it's quite futuristic. It's a showcase.
Okay.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I designed that with some BeagleBone greens and some open source software, actually, Letscape.
Okay.
Not sure if you heard of it.
I haven't, but
It's a super nice piece of software, especially for BeagleBones. And I designed some system to transfer the addressable LED data over like a few hundred meters without getting wonky,
mhm.
and with standard parts, so you don't want to crimp so many cables. I
Yeah,
didn't. So we used a lot of networking equipment for LED data.
Okay.
Um, yeah, that was one of the showcases basically. In the end, we had
Yeah.
a beautiful hotel with some amazing, colorful illumination. It was quite futuristic, and it worked. Of the 12,500 LEDs, no LED failed for another 2 years,
Oh, wow. Well done.
which is just super amazing to me.
So give us a visual description of what happens. You walk up to the front of the hotel and you
So
tap on your smartphone. Do the
door
doors
opens
open and the lights sort of scurry away into the building? Do they sort of?
basically. So there was always some illumination,
Okay.
so it isn't dark, but like a blue light. The software really, the software company really liked blue. That's what
Okay.
was like the brand color.
Right.
So a blue light appeared above you, leading you to your room. Basically for fixed speed.
Mhm.
We didn't do user tracking or whatever.
I was going to say, if you don't walk fast enough, you lose track of where you're supposed to be
You
going.
will.
Yeah. No, that's very cool though. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I think in this company with this job, you had sort of an internal makerspace as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my title was a maker, and we had quite a few makers there. Like our whole department was basically it was called laboratories, with the software company name in front.
Okay.
And basically that was the showcase department of this company, and also the show off department. And they had a makerspace running with 3D printers, lasers, pen plotters, and everything that was basically new technology. We had a virtual reality space for it for some time, an augmented reality space.
Nice. And was this sort of as a means to getting the job done, or was this in addition to what you needed to do your job?
We used it softly to get the job done. So it was a productive makerspace, but it was also open to, or semi-open to the public. So there were quite often school classes coming around, and the company did like show, like the technology show offs, like here that's available. And you can do this with technology, and 3D printing works like this, and this is how laser cutting works. So it wasn't open to the public, as in you could become a member, but you could certainly visit it with some notice. The company would show you around.
Yeah, nice. Okay, very cool. And so what happened after this job? Where did you go?
Yeah, so I didn't stay too long with them, just a year, mostly because part of showcases is that management might very often change their opinion, and you quite often have to scrub projects, even if they are good and finished.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah, it is. I enjoyed it again while it lasted, but it didn't last too long. So I went on, and I joined an Austrian startup where we designed charging stations for electric vehicles and wall boxes. So again, quite something different. So my main job there was to design the hardware again, electronics, but also do embedded and firmware this time. There was already a product which worked, but wasn't. It was rather a prototype than a product, and we joined that company, me and a friend, to create a product from this prototype and basically finish this, like
bring it to production.
Bring it to production.
Okay.
Exactly. And since that was my first, let's say, real product I developed, I learned so much. So with the other company, with showcases, you are still doing one-off prototypes which have to work to look fancy. But with a product that you are going to sell to a market, you suddenly have to comply with all the regulations that are in place, and you suddenly need to have a market in mind, which is a super large part. As
you need someone to buy it.
Yeah, you need someone to buy it, and you need to produce it to a price where someone can buy it. There was a lot.
So what sort of thing did you learn from the role there, in terms of either the sort of the technical work you were doing, or maybe bringing a product to market?
Both. So it changed a bit over time. So in the beginning, or in the early days there, we of course did mostly hardware design. We reworked the whole charging station because it had many flaws, and you couldn't sell it. It wouldn't comply. It was too expensive and was too complicated to build. It just wasn't ready. It was a nice prototype for someone to assemble themselves, but not a product. So we first of all had to get into high power hardware design, because we had to route 22 kilowatts through a PCB.
Yeah.
Without the PCB, starting
Burning
a
up?
fire. Yeah.
Okay.
That's not what you do in 5 minutes.
So is there anything in particular you learned from that in terms of the high power PCB design? Have you got sort of
Yeah.
super thick copper, or have you got multiple layers all doing the same thing, or where did you go with that?
Yeah. So the best way to get rid of heat is to just not produce it.
Okay.
As simple as that.
Yeah.
So one of the main issues there is for once heat produced by components, which you cannot really get rid of. If you have a relay that needs some power to latch up, you cannot do anything against it.
Mm-hmm.
So and all heat in the device adds up. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to prevent heat as much as possible, and you can do that by increasing the diameter of the traces, the thickness of the traces, and optimizing like solder joints. There are some read-ups online just
Mm-hmm.
what the perfect solder joint is
Okay.
for such a task, and don't have too many like crossings through a PCB where 22 kilowatts have to travel to vias, or 7 kilowatts if you have just one trace that needs to switch side. You don't want that.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a lot of you have to do a lot of optimization
Sure.
in terms of routing. And
I imagine as well a big part of this is keeping the high power stuff off the PCB. Is
yeah,
that right? Yeah. So
but that's not
in sort of
always
nice thick
possible.
cables and
Yeah, especially when it comes to EV chargers, because there are a lot of regulatories when it comes to cars,
mm-hmm.
and you need to have certain like relays which have a fixed or which have some current how do you call it, which are resistant to certain shortcut currents
Okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever. So there are some parts you need to have, and you
Yeah.
need to have an RCD, you need to have current sensing, and you cannot get rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
And while you can have a few of these parts external of the PCB, you probably don't want that.
It
That's
might
much
increase assembly costs and things. Is that?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
a lot. And
Yeah.
especially when it comes to
Okay.
RCDs, if you use like off-the-shelf RCD, which you have to
Mm.
use, you don't want to. We looked into this. You don't want to develop your own RCD.
Okay.
It's much worse than developing just the charger. Much worse when it comes to regulatories.
Yeah.
These off-the-shelf RCDs for switch boxes, they have like they consume like 10 watts or even more, so they get super warm, and
Interesting. Yeah.
that's another 10 watts to a heat bill.
Yeah. And I guess these are wall boxes, you said. That means that they could be outside in the sun, for example, as well, and still
Exactly,
need to
yeah.
perform.
Yeah, exactly. And there are,
Is
again, regulatories for that. Consumer electronics cannot have a case temperature higher than XY. It was, I think, 65 degrees for plastic or metal parts and 85 for plastic parts.
okay.
Depends a
That
bit on
sounds
the
sounds
material.
quite warm, but I don't know, so can't
Yeah,
comment.
and
Yeah.
if the interior is already at like 60 degrees and you play it in the sun, it will certainly
Yeah.
get warmer.
And you don't want ventilation, airflow, and things because you'll just get ingress of all the bugs and things. And
Yes, it will lay
maybe.
outside, so it might as well lay in the rain, not in the sun. So you just you not only have to prevent heat or to prevent it from getting too hot, but you also want to prevent water from the outside to get inside.
Yeah.
So designing outdoor electronics is another super huge challenge.
Yeah. Very
Um,
cool.
yeah, and further on, we at some point managed to, or we managed that. We managed the heat, we managed the routing, the assembly. It was nice. It was quite good to compare to what we started with. And then we started getting into production. What I learned there is, for in short form, the 20/80 rule. A prototype is 20% of a product.
Okay.
Totally applies. complying to regulatories, to CE, doing EMI compliance, setting up the supply chain, the manufacturers, maintaining all of that. It's so much work, so much. Especially when the chip crisis just hit it.
No, don't mention it.
Yeah, and especially when you have like this super specialty product which needs to use parts that comply with some regulatories where you can't exchange the parts.
Yeah.
Well, not as easy because you have to redo the whole thermal stuff.
That's
quite
very
some work.
interesting. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
so you were quite hands-on and involved in that side of things as well, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Well done.
As I mentioned before, it was a startup when we joined. It wasn't a super huge company. By the time I left it, which is about 2.5 years later, it was a super large company, which I'm somewhat proud of. It was amazing working there.
Awesome.
And seeing it grow and helping there. And we managed to create a product in the end and comply and bring it to market. And that was amazing. It was amazing doing that and actually finishing it. Spent quite some time in like EMI or radiation measurement chambers for the compliance testing, which was quite an experience.
Oh yes. And that could be quite an unexpected bill as well if you're not sort of if you're not aware of what's coming.
We knew how much it was.
Okay, so. Good.
And we did it multiple times, and one of these times we did it actually in China, in Shenzhen. Which was even more interesting because you have this language barrier in between. You're trying to communicate. So have you ever done EMI testing?
I have a bit, yeah.
Okay, so you know that like if it doesn't comply, you actually have the tools at this facility to fix it and prototype on it and iterate on it. And doing that in China was super weird and nice. So
very cool. Nice. So that's an amazing experience to have gone through and to be so hands-on on the whole thing as well. I've done the electronics part, and to be honest, I'm quite scared of the compliance and certifications and all this stuff because it's just there's so much to it. You have to know so much.
And it's also the much less exciting part.
Yeah.
It's more work, it's less exciting, and so of course you don't want to do it.
Oh dear. Anyway, well done. Good job. And so next up, in terms of your career, where did you end up? Where are you now?
Where I am right now. After 2.5 years, our ways departed again, and I joined a startup in San Francisco, and we are designing human-machine interfaces. So that's hands-free computer control interfaces. And I can't talk much about it.
No, that's fine. Don't worry.
It's quite the opposite. So from ultra high power designs, I went to ultra low power designs, especially designs that are used within the body.
And micro type electronics rather than the sort of the slightly larger, chunky wires and all this kind of thing.
So most parts I currently use are like 02, 01. And we might go smaller at some point. We don't need yet. So
okay.
there's still space.
Yeah, very cool. So you can't talk about that, that's fine. But would you be willing to talk about some of your personal projects? Because I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah.
So I think first up probably is Autocast, which is maybe one of your older projects. Are you willing to just talk about where the idea came from and how the project evolved and came together and where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So Autocast I designed about 2 years ago, and quite frankly, I didn't expect it to blow up this much. So it blew up a bit. It got quite a few stars on GitHub and some social media attention.
So I've got some photos from your GitHub page, so I'll just share them quickly while we're talking, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So how that came to life, it's a pretty stupid story. So you know the Chromecast audio.
Yes.
Yeah. Google stopped selling it. And the Chromecast audio I had at the time, which I used on a daily basis, also crashed on a daily basis,
Okay.
more or less. It was super flaky, and I wanted to replace it, but I couldn't because they stopped designing and selling it. There was no new version. Still, I was using it on a daily basis. So on one Sunday, after it crashed again, I sat down in front of my computer, and 19 hours later, this device was finished.
Wow. Seriously. 19
Yeah,
hours in one stretch. You just went for
yeah.
it.
So this is you shouldn't do that. It's
No.
not too healthy. This is the design single board computer in a single session challenge or whatever. Someone else did it before me, and I was like, yeah, I can beat you.
Did you?
No, it wasn't a competition, but we both now designed a single board computer in one night.
Wow. And did it work first time?
It actually did.
Oh, amazing. Well done.
I think I had one botch, like one single botch that I
Yeah.
needed to do with this whole project, which is
Nice.
amazing.
Well done. And so can you just sort of run through the features for us quickly? Obviously we've got 3.5 mil jacks here.
Yeah. If you want a more fancy view, you can also go to cast.otter.jetzt. Otter.jetz.
AETZ.
I can.
Oh yeah, I found it.
Fantastic.
Gonna work. There we go.
Yeah, we designed a super pretty
Very nice.
website for it. So basically, it's an open source audio streaming device with Wi-Fi and Ethernet, and also as well as USB as input. It has an high quality audio DAC, digital analog converter, and actually a full audio interface I see with line in and line out.
Okay.
It has Bluetooth, but we never used it, I think. I have never.
Does that mean that the Bluetooth is there but not functional, or that you personally
It's
never use
connected.
it? Okay.
I've just personally never.
Okay.
I don't think you wrote firmware for it or software.
Okay.
It has, as you can see on the image, 3 TRS jacks. One is line out, one is amplifier out with like 5 watts for headphones, and one is line in. So you can also use it as like input or like source for your whole Wi-Fi audio setup. It supports different protocols like SharePod Sync, which is AirPlay basically, like Spotify ID, which is a Spotify client, and Snapcast, which is an open source audio streaming protocol with multi-room audio support. And was there another one? Yeah, line in, but that's not a protocol.
That's very cool.
And it supports multi-room audio. It supports automatic time, like video stretching for Snapcast and SharePod Sync. So if you play a video or stream a video to your setup, it will automatically be delayed so that audio and video matches up.
Do you know the details of how that sort of stuff works? And can you talk a bit about that, or is that?
I don't know the details. That's managed within these different software libraries. I don't know how Apple does it.
Fair enough. Okay. But no, that's awesome. I love the project, and I would love to have one, but it's one of those situations, isn't it, where putting it somewhere and using it is different to wanting and having.
Yeah. No, so there's a general issue which I run into quite often. People want to buy such projects, and as much as I would love to see them out in the wild, I don't have the energy to build them and sell them. I really don't. And with this project, I didn't do this like alone. I designed the hardware in one night, and after that, we spun up a team for wonderful people who wanted the firmware, the Linux, Tobias. The other Tobias did the software and the front end, and Lucy designed another device, the Autocast Amp, which is even more prettier and much better, which is the Ottercast, but with 100 watts of output power and a fancy display which renders the music that's currently playing.
Nice.
If you want, if you go to the Ottercast organization on GitHub, you can open the Amp repo.
If I go to Autocast here,
yeah, exactly, and then there's the
there
Amp. It's much more pretty.
Oh yes, I did see this. Lovely.
And that's basically a product right there. But
Yeah.
none of us has the energy to like finish it off and sell it or distribute it at the moment. So
how does that make you feel? I mean, presumably you have and use these pieces of equipment for yourselves, and you've put so much time and effort and love into this project.
So that's the thing. I've put a lot of energy into it, but I really just wanted to listen to music. And
I love it.
I can do that now, and I'm happy. That's it. Really, there's not much to it. It might be a bit off when it comes to energy put into it and reward getting out of it, but that's it. There's not more to it.
Yeah, fair enough. Very cool either way. So that's the Ottercast, which I love as a project, and well done for your one night stint and everything.
Thank you. It's running since then reliably without crashing, which is so amazing.
That's so rewarding as well, isn't it, to have that feeling of stability from one of your projects?
I think the most reboots it had because of power outages, which is one. So cool. Like the Autocast Amp I have at home didn't render the images for like a full year. That's because like we wrote the software was available for like 9 months or whatever, but I didn't want to reboot it because it was running.
Have a reason.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So I never updated it.
Very cool. So another couple of your projects, and this might sort of hark back to your photography when you're younger, is the Otter Cam, and then your extra super mega wide camera, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the Otter Cam quickly first?
Yeah. So the real project, like the full Otter Cam, isn't actually released yet. Nobody has seen it. It's because it's not finished. That's also a project I started about 2 years, actually 3 years ago already, and that's when it was 2 years when the pandemic started. All the clubs shut down. There were no raves whatsoever, and some German TV stations started broadcasting DJs from clubs, and we participated in that. We at the time built a club in Karlsruhe where I live, and we streamed a few DJs from there, a few local DJs. And we use our cameras, the one I use for photography, for that, and it wasn't great. You cannot use like DSLRs for ultra low light conditions, streaming. They're not made for that. So in the end, we rented a few professional cameras to do it. But back then, a friend of mine discovered this fantastic image sensor which works in ultra low light conditions, and I thought to myself, yeah, well, you can actually design a camera with it. So I started this project. Back then, I built a whole camera with a FPGA dev board, and I wrote the FPGA design, the HEL design for it. I tested it; it worked well. It had an MIPI input and streamed to HDMI and NDI. NDI is a network-based protocol for professional streaming. The network version of SDI, which is probably more widely known. And it worked. I had this breadboardish camera set up, super flaky. So I started on hardware design. It utilized a Zynq FPGA, which you probably know.
Has a couple of ARM cores and things next to an FPGA. Yeah.
Yes, and it needs like DDR3 RAM, and it's a large design, especially when you consider having like 2.5K video at 60 FPS routed on that PCB from the image sensor, as well
Mhm.
as gigabit Ethernet and HDMI at 2.5K at least again, or even 4K.
Yeah.
That's not a design you do in 19 hours.
Oh, that's a shame.
So I started that design in Altium. So I use KiCad and Altium both
Mhm.
for different reasons. And I have like 14 pages of schematic, which are finished, like
Mhm.
finished. I looked over them. I have all the parts selected. They are all, I have the outline selected and most connectors placed. But that's where I stopped like 2 years
Okay.
ago. And it's very much on my to-do list.
Mhm.
I every now and then open it, but decide against currently working on it. So that's the Otter Cam that eventually will be released.
Okay.
However, in the meantime, I forked the Ottercast project because it utilizes the processor has the same MIPI interface,
Mhm.
and redesigned the Otter Cam with this processor. And
Okay.
that was actually like a 10-hour job. It was super fast, and even better, it worked on the first try without any botches. Um, so
You're magic.
no, not at all. I'm just copy pasting designs, really. So to build a proof of concept, I designed this camera with this much cheaper processor, which isn't an FPGA, which has some peripherals for this camera, and for image and video processing, it can never do like 2.5K at 60 FPS. It can
Mhm.
do 1080p at 30 FPS.
Okay.
Um, so it's not capable for the whole job, but it's nice to test the sensor, to test the mechanical assembly, to test the lens assembly, because I did another project there, and yeah, I finished the hardware design. I ordered PCBs, assembled them, tested them. The image sensors recognized. I'm currently at the stage where I need to write or finish off the MIPI driver and
Okay.
actually transmit some images via network.
Can I share my screen? Is this the right project we're talking about? This one here?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Amazing.
It's super small. It's like, is it 6 by 6 centimeters, I think, or 4 by 4 even just.
Mhm.
Um, so this is the image sensor I talked about. It's 2.5K at 60 FPS, and it has one of the best ultra low light performances on the market due to some, they call it NUXL technology. That's like 3D pixels, like pixels which are super long, so all the photons will be converted into like electric signals.
Okay. Interesting.
Um, and this sensor is super magical. Quite recently, Greg Davo forked this camera again
Okay.
for his thermal sensors and finished the software. So
Oh.
I now need to fork the software back again and run it on my camera.
I love the open source community and the way this happens. It's awesome.
Yeah. So Greg basically got this camera running before I did,
Yeah.
but with his own hardware design, which is so much more beautiful than mine is. Um, yeah, but this is basically a square Ottercast without
Yeah.
audio.
Yeah.
It's
Neat.
super simple.
And then
Um,
the 3-layer board here, you've got the top that looks like an EF type mount or similar. Is that right? For a
yeah,
lens?
exactly. So some time ago, I played a bit with EF lenses. So I
Mhm.
used to photograph on Canon. So I had a lot of EF or EFS lenses on hand.
Mhm.
And since I do like to do projects with like camera sensors and optics, and I eventually want to finish the big Otter Cam, I wanted to have like a lens system to use for it.
Mhm.
And these EF lenses, they have a control interface. So I looked around on the internet a bit and found some vague specifications and played around with it, and eventually got it to work. I can control now with this PCB EF lenses. I've made a 3D print, so you screw them on like you would to a camera, and they behave exactly like you would expect. You can control the aperture, the focus, and you can read information back and all sorts of stuff, or whatever the
Very cool.
lens supports.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. It's super handy, let's say, tool to have on hand for optical projects, to
Yeah.
have the mechanical and electrical design for these EF lenses. So on there's like a co-processor, a super small one, which exposes an I2C interface, so you can just connect it to your existing project and use it as I2C lens, basically.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. Well done.
Thanks.
So one big question I've got about image sensors, and this is something that I've not really worked with much in the past, is how do you actually get hold of them? Because I had a feeling they were very difficult to get your hands on.
You can simply buy them from
Can you?
Mauser, Arrow. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the magical part. You can buy them from Mauser, Arrow, and DigiKey. Especially
okay.
Arrow is super good with OmniVision.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if you need to be a company to buy from them.
Okay. That's very
This
interesting.
like this sensor is just a few bucks, like 3 to
Yeah.
6, I think, which is
Okay.
super cheap.
Because I know from previous software work I've done that the data sheets often are very sort of behind NDAs and whatever else. But
Yeah, so the data sheets are you will not be you're not able to obtain data sheets legally or easily.
yeah.
It must not mean that they're non-outer,
Okay.
you know.
Very cool either way.
No, like especially with this sensor, it's from OmniVision, and
Mhm.
they sell through Arrow, which is
Yeah.
super convenient.
Yeah, nice. And then in terms of placing and assembly and things, is that something that you just provide it to assembly house or do it yourself and they just deal with it? Or
Mm,
because obviously any scratches or blemishes, whatever on the surface are not a good idea. So do they come with a
Um,
film on? How do they
half
work?
half.
Yeah.
So the Ottercast, for example, and also this camera, I just ordered like 10, 15 boards assembled from JLC. However, I had JLC only assemble the passives. Everything
Okay.
else I sold on by hand,
Mhm.
because JLC doesn't, or did back then, didn't offer to solder on S3s and Wi-Fi modules and
Yeah.
whatsoever. I think they do now. I'm not sure.
I'm not up to date, but
Yeah, same. They updated the assembly service, but I'm not
yeah.
up to date. So I ordered them with all the passives assembled, which especially for the Ottercast, which has a ton of passives, is super convenient. There are no shorts. I just noticed on the Ottercast website you can see the botch on the big image right in the middle. Um,
Never mind.
um, and the S3 and the Wi-Fi module and the everything that JC didn't have on hand, I assembled by hand.
Okay.
And for smaller projects, I do everything by hand. So, for example, with the image sensor, I just do it by hand.
Okay. Fair enough.
Um,
Yeah.
there are some techniques that you can work out for BGA, which gives you like a 100% yield almost every time.
Nice. Very cool. Okay, should we talk about the next camera project?
Oh yes,
I'm excited about this one, so please go for it.
this one also doesn't exist yet,
That's
and
fine.
people might suggest that I should finish the other one first, but
No.
yeah, exactly. No, I will always start more and more projects. No, so quite some time ago, like 3 months ago, I had this super stupid brain fart, which now needs to become real. Um, I really love line scan sensors, and I found one laying around at home. So I brought back with me from China back then. It's not a good one, just a standard Toshiba line scan sensor. And since I travel a lot by train, and Germany has this amazing high speed rail network with trains running up to like 320 kilometers an hour through Germany. Um, I I had the idea of combining it, using a line scan camera as like the y-axis for an image and a high-speed train as an x-axis. And I wanted to take a photograph from Karlsruhe to Berlin, which is the route I travel the most, which will result in an image with like 5,000 pixels to 760 kilometers.
It's just absurd.
It is. currently working on designing a system. I selected a super nice full color line scan sensor from Toshiba, which has recently been released.
Again, can I share my screen? I think this might be the right picture. Is that the correct one?
No, that's not. That's the
Oh.
old one I brought from China.
Oh, okay.
I even
Apologies.
designed a breakout board for it, but I never wrote firmware for this. This one also utilizes the EFF lenses. So with the 4 screws, there's like a 3D printed part, and you can see this white connector on the bottom right corner, which connects to the lens.
Okay, nice. Anyway, sorry, back to your story. I didn't mean to derail you.
No.
Line scan sensor is literally a strip of pixels, right?
Yeah.
And so you put that behind a lens, and you get like a vertical stripe.
Yeah, these stripes are usually, or these sensors are usually used in industrial context over belts. So when you have like moving parts on a belt, you put a line scan camera on top, and the belt is the second axis. You don't need to take square pictures every now and then of what's currently on there, but you can have a continuous line scan.
And then you get perfect. You don't get the parallax, whatever it's called, as well as the part moves past.
Just in one direction.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
And I want to use such a line scan camera or sensor on an ICE train to take a picture from Karlsruhe to Berlin and photograph the beautiful German landscape, which I really like, in a single photograph. This will result in an image with a few billion pixels and a size of estimated 4 to 6 terabytes. So there's much more to it than designing this camera, which is already a super complicated task. I found out, especially if I want to design a camera which can utilize the full frame speed, which I don't need. I don't need like 6,000 lines per second for this project. I need a few hundred at max.
Yeah.
Still, if I design like a capture board for this camera or sensor, I want to design a capture board which can do the full speed. So I'm currently designing like this capture board, this camera, essentially this one or two-dimensional. It's two-dimensional one. It's two-dimensional, I think. Camera with 1 pixel by 5,000. With an high-speed interface, which is either Ethernet, like NBASE-T, that's 2.5 gigabits, or USB 3, which is a bit more. It's like 5 gigabits, I think, roughly. Yeah, and where was I? Oh yeah, and I need to implement or work on some image stabilization, because the train is moving and it also moves up and down and shakes. So I need to compensate for.
There's the up and down, but there's also the speed that it's traveling needs to change the rate the lines come out. Maybe?
Yes. Okay. And I do have something for that here already.
Oh, awesome.
So also the speed changes, and while that is okay in itself, I can utilize that to save some data, because if this train moves slower, I don't need that. I don't need the highest like scan rate. But if it moves fast, I want a higher scan rate. And if it stops, I don't need to scan at all. And I need to know the current speed at all times for image reconstruction. Or it would help me with image reconstruction. So what I need to do is I need to get the train speed. And there are options, and I'm certainly over-engineering it. So I designed this tiny board, which holds an 18650 cell, has an ESP on there. The image is mirrored. ESP on there, some GPS module here. In between is a BNO 055. It's a 9-axis IMU with like path reconstruction. So if I move this with just the IMU, it can reconstruct from where to where I moved it.
That's all happening in the silicon now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Okay.
And just some SD card for logging and a USB interface. And what this does, it does sensor fusion with GPS, the IMU. However, the ICE trains also provide an API where they show the axle speed. So we'll also do sensor fusion with the whole train. Because I'm not sure if will get a GPS fix in the train. So I will do
Oh,
sensor fusion with the train and an IMU to get the current like speed.
is that a
And
publicly documented API, or is that something that you just know about?
I'm not sure if it's publicly documented, but it's publicly reachable, like from
Yeah.
within the train's Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Updates
Very
once a
cool.
second, I think. So I can use the IMU for like speed reconstruction and the axle speed for drift compensation.
Absolute speed. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this like where I started with this small board, which I also can use mobile or like when I'm outdoors skiing or whatever, as general like speed and position tracker. And the only thing, like I assembled this a few weeks ago, but I was not able to yet to find an 18650 type. And since I'm currently in the US and I won't be here for too long, I
Okay.
also don't want to buy one which I can't take on the airplane because
Oh,
that's
okay. Yeah.
scary
Yeah.
without a case. So
That's very
um,
cool.
yeah, that's where it's currently. That's where the current state is. I'm designing the camera board while working on the speed tracking or like position tracking side already. I think the camera itself will get another like inertial motion unit for image stabilization. So
Okay.
to
I was wondering if
help.
perhaps this unit would be combined with your camera at some point, and they would form a
It
unit.
will,
Okay.
but I'm not sure if I will add all of these features to the camera itself. So my
Okay.
plan was to gather some data with it, but everything is delayed somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's fair enough.
the camera is probably ordered before I have acquired enough data to decide on if I can use this board or if I need another one.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is basically just a small meta project for this whole camera thing.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this evolves. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm so when I started this project, I didn't. So what I do with projects, I don't think them fully through. Like
Yeah.
I love to take on challenges when I encounter them. So if I would have thought it fully through, I would probably have not started it because like collecting 3 to 4 terabytes of image data and then writing a viewer for it because you cannot view it. That's not
Yeah.
how this works. Like
You'll need like a tiled-based system or something, won't you?
yeah, exactly. So
And if you have it on your screen, it'd be like a half or a quarter of a pixel high.
exactly. So I need to develop a method of viewing it which is appealing to the eye.
Yeah.
And I think I worked that out. It will be a bit like almost like a video or a map with automatic movement on it. So
Okay.
if you open the website, you will see like your frame of wind or your current frame, which will move along the time that it takes to travel. You can jump around and explore. So yeah, basically it will be like an interactive map.
Yeah.
But I probably need to write that myself. And
That's more project.
yeah, that's a lot of work. And then there's image stabilization. I've never done that before. I need to work on that. And
Yeah.
there's still the hardware design, which when utilizing USB 3 or N-base-T, which is 2.5 gigabits of Ethernet, and this 35 megasamples or 40 megasamples ADC with 3 channels, that's a lot of work too. It's not like an STM32 with USB. I probably need an FPGA for that.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So there's one like time goal and also one. I'm not stressed right now because it's getting colder outside. It's currently fall, and after in winter the landscape isn't as beautiful as it is
Okay.
in spring. So there's like a time window on when I can record an image actually,
Okay.
which is in spring, early summer probably.
Yeah.
So I have some time until it's spring again, but I should be finished by then.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any idea of what the image might look like? Have you taken a number of stills and then snipped a sort of a single pixel column out and
Yeah,
stitched it together?
a friend of mine who I chatted a lot about this project and who helped so much already. Worked a bit on a proof of concept software. So basically, he wrote some software which takes a mobile phone video that you have taken out of a train, takes the middle slice, and so
Okay.
reconstructs an image from it, and it's very weird. Having an image without like a parallax
Yeah.
effect is very interesting, and a lot of work needs to be done with like scaling the image or stretching and squeezing it to have like a uniform field of view, because else like power lines will be squeezed to super small size, which looks a bit uncanny, or
Yeah.
stuff is stretched too much. So I'm not sure yet if it is appealing at all,
Okay.
or if it work at all.
Give
But
it a go. Give it a go.
yeah, so it looks interesting. There are results already, and it certainly looks interesting.
Yeah.
But I think I want to put a lot of work into image reconstruction and right away, like how would you call it, like the image itself, so it actually looks appealing. Like a normal camera, when it takes a photograph, like a raw image, it's not appealing, not at all.
Yeah.
But the
The
development into
processing
like
and
this JPEG with like 3D LUTs and color LUTs, like this lookup tables and color conversions and stuff. That's what makes it super appealing, and I need to work on that as well. So there's a lot to explore, but that's what I love.
Very cool. Well, I will definitely be keeping my eyes open for updates. No pressure.
Yeah.
Cool.
No, I will. As soon as there's more, I will tweet about it, as always.
Yeah. Brilliant. Very good. Well, I think we're sort of towards the end now. Is there anything in particular you'd like to mention or talk about or say?
I don't think so.
Yeah?
I have a few smaller projects I'm working on, but nothing too exciting yet. And you
Okay.
will eventually see it on Twitter, probably.
Sure. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Yeah,
It's been
thank you.
really good to talk, and your projects are very exciting. I love them.
Thanks. This was fun to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. So next week we'll be talking with Thea Flowers. And aside from that, it's goodbye from us. Bye.
Bye.